Good morning, everyone. This is Anthony, Wall Street Trader. It's 11:28 a.m. on Monday, May 31st, 2021. For those in the States, happy Memorial Day. We all have off today. It's great. Let's just go straight into the fact that this is not financial advice, and the video here is intended for educational purposes only. There's a Twitter link below if you want to subscribe to my intraday updates, as well as stay tuned with all of the videos I put out at least once a day for all of the cryptocurrencies I cover. RLC and the graph and NewsCipher. So let's go straight into the allocation. So I'm still 40% baked into RLC, meaning I've bought RLC at 2 entry points, 20% here, 20% there. Why? Because I don't put 100% on any point. Because there's no such thing as finding the perfect bottom in every investment I do. More times than not, most times than not, if not all times, every time you buy something, you'll find a slightly better price. You have these choppy patterns, especially in cryptos, where, layering in is a way better, from my perspective, is a way better approach to investing. So anyway, so what's happened? So I had a couple of other entry points where I wanted to put the other 60% of the capital that I have dedicated to RLC. I wanted to put that cash to work. So I've defined a couple of entry points, potential entry points. Problem is they never hit. And why am I not overly sad about that? Well, because I'm already in at certain points here. So I have some things that are working to my advantage if RLC continues their trek up. So let's go take a look at the market. So by the way, the entry points that I had was at a point where RLC was around 430, 420, and we thought it was slightly bearish and was slightly getting more bearish, but the $4 point never hit. The other point that I had was if the relative strength of RLC Bitcoin goes down to 12,000 or below. That never hit either. So if we go to the markets, and by the way, before we get into that, let's just understand that we're going to be looking at Bitcoin and RLC relative to Bitcoin in order to understand where we're going with RLC. So let's just go straight to Bitcoin first. We're 37,000. We've been teetering between the high 36s to 37s. I think what's going to wind up happening tomorrow is institutions will start coming back to work, and all of these funds and all sorts of other investment vehicles will start, I think, will start purchasing more Bitcoin. And I'll tell you why. Number one, this past week, we started to see a little more investment going into the NASDAQs and into the S&Ps in the growth sector. So that's very bullish. That means there's a lot of positive sentiment out there. Right, rising gas prices are not going to really create a big, it's offset with all the money that the government here in the States are printing out. So I'm not worried about that one bit. I don't think that's going to have a major impact on our economy in that regard. So I think that, the buying spree will continue between now and the end of the year. Checks are coming out the door. Where are they going to put their money? Well, I know where the retail folks are going to be putting their money, or at least many of the folks that are getting that cash are probably going to be sticking it in Bitcoin and whatever other alt currency they want to do. So anyway, Bitcoin right now is close to 37,000. As I mentioned yesterday on my long-term view, I think that we're going to wind up going straight to 80,000, maybe 100,000, maybe more. This is my range, 60 to 100,000. I have a very high degree of certainty in my mind and in my view and in my analysis that we'll hit that. Does that mean we're going to hit it? No, it doesn't. However, that being said, let's move over to the RLC Bitcoin chart here. And as I mentioned yesterday, these were my ranges for that. Now, let's just go back to this part here. This part where I thought RLC Bitcoin could hit 12,000, where I could get it nice and cheap, never happened. If you look at a shorter term view, we kind of hit a low of 12,397, as you can see over to the right over here. So we hit that low, and then we wound up bouncing back up and bouncing back up and bouncing back up. Now, this chart is pretty solid in terms of its consistency. The support on this line is pretty strong right now. I think we're going to start curling back up again, to be honest with you. As long as we can continue to keep our head on top of this line of support, that's a very good sign for iExec RLC. So let's move over to the dollar version of RLC. This pattern is also intact. What was once resistance turned into support. We bounced this. This here was an aberration of, folks liquidating on margin calls and, based on 100-to-1 leverage. I mean, these are capitulations that occur from time to time that are considered aberrational. So you kind of like want to, X this out. It's a pretty tall wick anyway. So, I'm not concerned about that. So remove that little red line, drop down, and you have a perfect resistance turning to support line. I think we're going to start trekking up from here. Let's move now into one last point about Bitcoin, is that on the Bitcoin chart here, remember, tomorrow institutions come back. Why do I think altcoins will rally this week? Predominantly because of the fact that the knock-on impact of institutions coming back, putting more money to work in Bitcoin. And by the way, they'd be doing that because I think NASDAQ's going to get a nice rally. I think growth is going to start returning in terms of a healthy rally this week, which will feed into Bitcoin. Institutions feeding into Bitcoin will make folks on the retail side, sentiment-wise, more optimistic. And as a result of that, you should start to see some movement on some of these altcoins. So I'd like to see, you probably see a little rally in the DeFi space, but, hoping more on the infrastructure side. As I hold these long term, I remember why I've invested in things like RLC, NewCipher, and the graph is because I think that the lowest common denominator across all of these cryptos is infrastructure. And I think they will be the ones that will be around in the long term. Anyway, I'm out. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.